Welcome to Flip the Tables, the podcast that is going to disrupt leadership with love and truth. Not hype, not ego, not platform building disguised as vision, but love, truth, and the audacity to believe that Jesus actually meant what he said about leadership and the examples that we find flooded within Scripture. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then good. You're in the right place. First and foremost, I'll be honest, this is the light at the end of the doctoral tunnel for me. And this podcast is in existence because of that. However, it is the absolute perfect way to start flipping the tables of leadership, and I am stoked to get started. Secondly, as you've probably already been able to tell, I am from the South, and that Southern drawl will inevitably come out for the majority of this podcast, so I do apologize in advance. And lastly, there will be some snippets in this episode and within this podcast that I may sound a little angry. Well, it's because I am. See, people get this opportunity to lead others, and when they choose to mess around with such a blessing and the impact that I see that it has on so many people, yeah, that infuriates me. And through that frustration is kind of how the theme of this podcast came to be. So throughout this podcast and throughout my leadership, I fully plan to flip the tables by calling out the bad and proving that leading with love is the right way. But before we dive into what we'll be discussing this season, let me share a little bit about me and how I ended up here. As you may already know, or not, I'm Bethany Brady, the host of this podcast. And above all, I'm a child of God. I'm a wife, a mother, a caregiver, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a volunteer, a DSL candidate, and one that's very important to me. I am a leader. And honestly, I don't think I've ever written out those 4 words together until I did for this episode. I am a leader. I'm a leader to the most amazing group of people that allow me to lead them with love every single day. They are all so uniquely individual, and it's beautiful to see where we come from to where we are now with love. And we'll get into that throughout each little episode. I'll add snippets about my team and how we work together with love. But let's get back to what we're here for. I never imagined that I would be working towards the end of my doctoral degree, and never imagined I would be in the leadership position that I am in now until the right set of leaders at the right time was put into my life. In that, it unlocked a confidence in me that was grounded in obedience that I never knew existed. I've described this before as, in the past, through the handful of bad leaders that I had, it was like blocks had been stacked on my head from comments of, "You're not good enough. Know your place. You're too young. You're a woman. You're stupid. You don't belong here." And all of those other degrading comments that are now probably stirring around in your mind. Now, I had some fantastic leaders in my life who gave me courage and pushed me to be the best I could be. But those bad leaders, man, they knocked me down. So what started to happen with these blocks, when given the right leadership, it felt like these blocks were being lifted off of my head, off of my shoulders, and being placed in front of me as if they were stairs to move forward and upward, not only in my life, but specifically my leadership. This was through encouragement, opportunities here and there, pouring into my potential, and pushing me to just be me. Not telling me to hide my rough around the edges, not masking my sarcasm, and no watering down the fierceness that I bring to the table. Which leads here. Flip the tables. A strong title, but a meaningful one. See, to me, leadership is a ministry. And as leaders, we have been blessed with the opportunity to lead others. So my question to you leaders, how are you going to use this blessing? Are you going to be so insecure that control is the only way you think you can lead by instilling fear? Are you going to micromanage your team to the point they feel they need to report a sneeze? Or the one that infuriates me the most? Are you going to be the type of leader that refuses to hold yourself accountable, yet shifts the blame onto your team so that you don't look bad? Just so you know, you do look bad. See, love is an action. Love is somewhat adjustable because leadership is not meant to be one size fits all. And to find the right way to lead each individual member of your team, you must love them enough to pour into them and really build a relationship with them. Because God made us all uniquely different. And we're going to learn about that on Flip the Tables. And so hopefully by this point, you've kind of figured out where I'm coming from and how we found ourselves studying and preaching love leadership. So let's get rolling. Leadership is not broken. Not because people don't know how to lead, but because too many are leading without love, but calling it strength, excellence, or just how it's done. See, systems can run smooth, people can be managed, and projects can explode, all without love. Anyone can serve without love. But Scripture is painfully clear what kind of leadership that produces. And in 1 Corinthians 13:1, it reads, "If I speak human or angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal." You heard it. A noisy gong, a clanging cymbal. In modern terms, that is a loud leader with nothing worth listening to. And yes, the loudest typically fit that description. Not all, but some. I've been asked why I picked the name Flip the Tables. Well, when Jesus flipped the tables, he wasn't doing it for clicks or popularity. He was confronting leadership that had confused authority with entitlement, power with righteousness. He disrupted systems that were looking out for themselves rather than the people. And guess what? He did it with love. Not soft love, not passive, but truth-telling, justice-demanding, people-protecting love. We're going to flip the tables of leadership that centers ego over people, uses fear as motivation, and confuses charisma with character. See, because some leaders have a tendency to treat love like it's an accessory, like it's optional. Nice to have, comes in after the results. Well, James disagrees, and he tells us in chapter 3, verse 17, "But wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without pretense." Please note, James did not mention wisdom from above is domineering, manipulating, or self-promoting. And he definitely did not say that wisdom becomes loving after the results show up. Listen, it comes down to if love is not first, then what you're practicing is not wisdom. It's control with really good branding. And let's clear the air on this. Love leadership is not about being a pushover. It's not about avoiding hard conversations, letting dysfunction slide, or handing out participation trophies. Love confronts, it corrects, sets boundaries, and tells the truth, both clearly and consistently. And Paul tells us this in 1 Corinthians 13:4-5, by telling us love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, is not boastful, is not arrogant, is not rude, is not self-seeking, is not irritable, and does not record of wrongs. Now let's read that again. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy, is not boastful, is not arrogant, is not rude, is not self-seeking, is not irritable, and does not keep a record of wrong. Now picture yourself at a leadership table. And if you're leading through arrogance, irritability, or keeping score, you're not leading with love. You're leading with insecurity. And let me tell you, insecurity is quite expensive. It will not only cost you your integrity and trust, but it'll cost you your people. Servant leadership. Let's discuss it. This may cause some tension, but we're going to cut right through it. You can serve without love and still look pretty impressive. But when you start with love, man, that service is going to go way beyond anything you could have ever personally engineer. Service without love burns people out. Love-centered service builds people up. Service without love produces compliance. Love-centered service produces commitment. Back to the scripture. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 13:3, and if I give away all my possessions, and if I give over my body in order to boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. You heard it. Nothing. Nada. No influence, no legacy, no lasting fruits. That verse alone should hit a narcissistic leader who thinks being busy or busy for God, in some cases, as an excuse for being harmful to people, right in the heart. Now that we've brought up narcissists, let's just get on with it. Narcissistic leaders tend to confuse being cool or bold with being faithful. Through weaponizing vision, weaponizing scripture, spiritualizing ego, spewing humility while building personal empires, all while, if given the chance, are willing to squash whatever or whoever gets in their way, just so that they're the ones that are known or seen. Never holding themselves accountable. It's always everyone else's problem, obviously. James 3:14 reads, "But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth." Selfish ambition, dressed up as being your calling, is still just selfish ambition. And yes, we're going to shut that down within this podcast, lovingly, obviously, and repeatedly. While on the subject, let's go ahead and jump to the cousin of narcissistic leadership, which is fear-based leadership. And let's just start here by calling it by its real name, lazy leadership. Using intimidation, silence, obedience only to them, or loyalty only to them, that's just wrapping you up because you are insecure and you're lazy, or you're definitely not leading. And so if you remember anything from this depressing section, remember this: fear shrinks vision. And if fear is driving your leadership, love is probably not even riding in the back seat. It's non-existent. And newsflash, everyone can tell. They may not say anything, but they can tell. And when love leads, the darkness becomes exposed, not by force, but through clarity, which leads us right into a much brighter subject, the core reason behind this podcast, and all the other subjects that we will be discussing this season. The core of this podcast started with a combination of different things. One being scripture from James chapter 3, verse 1. Not many should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we will receive a stricter judgment. Leadership is a type of teaching, and so we should take it very serious, as James tells us. That scripture combined with 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, which we mentioned earlier in the podcast, and we use lots and lots throughout the season. Secondly, there was just an overall inability to fit myself into any of the leadership models that we had been studying. And third, I was just getting to the point where I'm fed up with the bad leadership and the impact that I'm seeing on people every single day. And a combination of all of these things, swirling around, trying to nail down what I could do, how I could be different in my leadership, and what I could do to try to start making a change. It came down to making my own leadership model. Not fully from the ground up, but kind of. And so this is where we get love leadership. Because leadership is not meant to be toyed with. Leading with love is not weak. And it is truly, truly the most aligned with Jesus. Love leadership does not lower the bar. It raises the standard for both leaders and those who they are leading. And in reality, love leadership is the most demanding. But in my experience, it's also the most rewarding. It requires us to see people not just outcomes. And that can be a little scary. And my goal is to reach leaders in all different seasons, leaning in a little heavier on the Christian leaders, but overall leadership in general. Hopefully sparking those hard conversations that lead to solutions and success, that build those relationships that were thought to be broken, mending communication issues, bridging generational gaps, how being a woman in leadership is no longer taboo, breaking down how humor works within leadership, understanding the difference in peacekeepers versus peacemakers, reminding leaders the importance of trust, transparency, accountability, grace, your character, integrity, discernment, wisdom, boldness, growth, and overall how leadership is truly kingdom work. These are all subjects that we'll be discussing throughout this season, each individually broken down, and at the center of it all will be love leadership. And I'm excited to start this journey with you all. If you're exhausted with leadership that looks successful but feels empty, welcome. If you're ready to readjust the sails but not abandon the ship, welcome. If you're here to just grow in your leadership and learn something new, welcome. If you're here because you heard that awesome trailer that dropped last Wednesday, welcome. If you're here supporting me because you know me personally, thank you so much and welcome. If you're here to see if I mess up, I will. I'm human, but also welcome. I've established an email address connected to the podcast, flipthetablespodcast@gmail.com. You can also find this in the show notes. If you feel led, send any and all questions, comments, concerns to that email address, and yes, I will respond to all of them. Let's start some discussions. The next 15 weeks, we are going to pull back different subjects of leadership and connect them all back to love leadership. Some episodes will have guests, but not all. So join me back here next Wednesday, same time, same platforms, to take a deeper dive into exactly what love leadership is and how it should be viewed as the most elite leadership model, and how I can prove it to not be weird, but how it works. So this is Flip the Tables. Let's lead differently.